So what would you guess that Bob Costas, Ann Magnuson, and Ken Dixon have in common? We all love Ernest Angley. He is by far the most entertaining televangelist ever in all three of our books. And let me tell you about Ernest Angley in the College of Worcester. We had a drinking game called Deadly Ernest. So everybody would pick one word. We'd turn on Ernest preaching on Channel 55 WBNX, his TV channel, out of Canton, Ohio, Akron, Canton. He bought Rex Humbard's Cathedral of Tomorrow and got the TV channel. BNX has always been a great TV channel. It was awesome before it became a network affiliate, but it was the rerun king in the 1980s. I digress. The drinking game, Deadly Ernest, went like this. You picked a word, and every time he said it, you had to take a shot. You didn't take things like heal and sweet Jesus and any of those words or your phrases. You were in big trouble unless that's what you wanted. And if that's what you wanted, Ernest was there for you. So you'll love this interview. It's Ann Magnuson on Later with Bob Costas on June 14th, 1990. And they talk at length about televangelists coming out of, Ann's upbringing in West Virginia. They also make fun of attitudes, which, who didn't? And it's a superb Ann Magnuson interview with, coming off of Anything with Love and Richard Lewis and all that good stuff. No Jamie Lee mention, not one. So if that's what you're looking for, we know why you like Jamie Lee.
Thanks for staying up later. You may know Ann Magnuson as Catherine Hughes, the editor on ABC's Anything But Love with Richard Lewis and Company. She's also had roles in Desperately Seeking Susan, Making Mr. Right, and Tequila Sunrise. Plus, there's an aspect of her entertainment career that, unless you were prowling around certain parts of New York the past few years, you wouldn't know about, and we'll get to all that during the course of the next half hour. But first of all, let's start with Anything But Love. How much, as somebody who does some offbeat comedy work on your own, how much do you have to rein yourself in on that program? And is it liberating because you're doing something different, or is it inhibiting for you?
There's a loaded question. I have to do a certain amount of reining in, yeah, but on the other hand, it requires a new kind of discipline that I'm not used to. And that's going in every day and working with an ensemble where I'm used to doing a lot of things solo. And working in front of an audience every Friday, which is a great experience. But it's a lot like the performances I used to do in nightclubs in New York, because we would create something new every week so that you get that same feeling of immediacy and spontaneity that you sort of need to work with.
Some of the same problems and challenges, not exactly the same, but some parallels between your situation and Richard Lewis's as the Marty Gold character. I mean, obviously, Richard is playing himself always to some extent, and you see the Richard Lewis stage persona on the show as well, but he can't let the reins out completely. He's got to stay within the confines of the script, and I guess that's a new thing for him too.
I think he does a great job.
Oh, he definitely does.
He's a really good actor.
He definitely does. Are you pleased with the way the show has been received?
Yeah. Yeah, we've gotten some good reviews out of it, and people seem to respond to the Catherine character well, and that makes me happy.
She kind of rides herd over everybody.
Yeah, and she needs her own spin-off one day.
Is that what we're angling for here?
Catherine's World, where she goes back to New York and takes the city by storm.
As somebody who's done, as you say, a lot of nightclub work, a lot of what's called performance art, the Eric Bogosian sort of thing, where you're creating things almost moment to moment on stage. Do some of your cohorts from those days look at you as having sold out because you're on network television and doing a series?
None of my friends ever accuse me of that. I don't know. I would imagine there would be some sort of carping on that level, but I haven't really gotten any of it face-to-face from anybody. I think there's so many people from that world who are branching out into mainstream films and, you know, music success and on a bigger level that it's, I think everybody wants that, so they're less inclined to attack you. If
sure,
you're...
and it doesn't preclude you're going back and doing the same thing.
No, not at all. I'm going to do a new performance piece at Lincoln Center for the Serious Fun Festival in July. And actually, it gives you a lot more freedom because you don't have to worry about figuring out how to get the rent or where the next meal is coming from. So you've kind of got that taken care of. You have a little financial safety net. So I can be even more inaccessible in my performance work than I was before.
And it probably opens many new doors for you, even within that world. I mean, your name has got to be even more recognizable, and the opportunities, which you hope that you use wisely, have to increase geometrically, right?
Yeah, I would imagine that I could probably get some bookings across the country that I might not have been able to get before. But then I'd be a little scared. They would be expecting Catherine Hughes and get me having a nervous breakdown on stage. And
have you got any favorite episodes, either because they showcased your character especially well or because they captured what the show is at its best?
Well, I like the first episode because it sets everything up and introduces my character well. But I think my favorite is when Catherine has a miniature nervous breakdown because she's not mentioned in the fictional versions of the Andy Warhol diaries.
That's it. I'm suing. Get my lawyers on the phone.
Oh, come on, Catherine. You can't sue him for writing this thing. After all, you admitted you were there in the first place.
Well, apparently, I wasn't. Excuse me? Let me put it this way. She and I are mentioned the exact same number of times.
I'm in the diary?
You're not even in your own diary. How could they ignore me? I was at all the parties. I was at all the nightclubs.
Catherine, it's just a book.
It's not just a book. It is the book. Everybody who's anybody is in it, and I'm not. Which means I'm not the person I thought I was. I thought I was sent here because I was hot, because I was hip, but this wasn't a promotion. I've been put out to pasture with the little people, the nobodies, the dregs of humanity.
You grew up where?
In Charleston, West Virginia.
Not the sort of background that one would think would give rise to the type of work you do.
Well, you'd be surprised at the kind of people who live there. There's some very witty, offbeat folks there. That it's unusual because not a lot of people leave West Virginia. So that in itself, I guess, is some kind of accomplishment. People are always impressed that I've just managed to survive in New York. That alone is a big accomplishment.
Do a lot of people who were part of your life growing up in West Virginia figure in your act in some way? Parodies of those people or extensions of those people?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, the show that I'm writing for the Serious Fun Festival, most of the material comes from West Virginia. I go there a lot, and I find the people there very genuine and real, and you sort of... Life there is just stripped down to its bare essentials, which I can appreciate. And there are an awful lot of quirky, eccentric types there, and I like West Virginians a lot, and there is a wealth of material, one of which are the people who inhabit the Bible Belt, and that's where I first got turned on to Tammy Faye Baker and those evangelists. My grandfather was a Swedish evangelist. I didn't know him much, but certainly grew up around a lot of scripture with my grandmother, and was drawn to Tammy because of her obvious eccentricities.
And where do these kids get these ideas anyway, huh? These Satan teens, huh? From movies that depict Santa Claus as an axe murderer. Why, these people out in Hollywood are nothing but a bunch of demon worshippers themselves. You're Steven Spielberg, Steinfeld, and the like. And don't get me wrong, I love our Jewish friends. I do. even if they did kill Christ. Feeding our children, gremlins, poltergeists, mermaids, satyrs, vampires, werewolves, punk rockers, and Democrats!
Sweet pea, cut the ad-lib. You're gonna blow our cover.
Taking young women and engaging them in lizard-like reptilian sex! People, the cloven hooves and claws of the devil are tightening his death grip on this nation. With his long, sharp, unmanicured nails, overgrown cuticles covered with scales, pieces of dirt and lint and decomposed flesh underneath. Ugh.
Who's the best of the TV evangelists, past and present? Because I've got a definite choice.
Oh, there are a few. Well, I've always enjoyed Jimmy Swaggart before his fall. I think he was really the best.
It seems like a little of the wind has gone out of the sails now.
Oh, he's not nearly as good. I think he's too guarded.
Yeah, before he was just belligerent, stuck his chin out and said, you know, go ahead, take a swing if you want.
Oh, and when he got on Hollywood, there was nothing more entertaining. He would get so mad at George Lucas and Steven Spielberg for creating the force be with you, like that was some sort of satanic
Christian rock
concept.
Also raised his hackles.
Yeah, oh, that's
Christian
true,
rock
yeah.
really ticked him off.
Everything ticked him off. That's what was so beautiful about it. And he was just the best actor. He was a brilliant actor.
You know, I used to watch, my wife would walk in the room and say, you're out of your mind, will you shut that thing off? And this is like you say, before the fall, I'd sit there and watch him for 45 minutes or an hour just to watch him stride up and down the stage, mesmerize the crowd, never be at a loss for the right thing to say for even a millisecond. I mean, just as performance, forget about the content,
yeah.
This stuff was on a level that was in outer space.
And he could actually, as perverse as this sounds, you could become emotionally stirred by him.
Oh, yeah.
That's how strong of a presence he was, that he could move you with all this talk. My favorite was when he was getting all riled up over E.T. And his description of it was, it looks like something that crawled out of hell. Just thought that was so brilliant.
You know who's a guy I really like? The guy in Akron, Ohio, Ernest Angley.
I love Ernest Angley. He's wonderful. He's very genuine, I think. He's sort of a Liberace kind of evangelist character.
Yeah, that's an apt description. He's got the worst toupee you've ever seen in your life, and you figure, if this guy can heal the lame and make the blind see, why can't he regenerate hair growth so he wouldn't have to wear this stupid wig?
Well, he probably doesn't see it as being stupid. He's very entertaining.
Oh, he's the best. He's not nearly as good as a performer as Swaggart, but his persona is so absurd that he makes you laugh just walking out there, just standing there.
Yeah, he seems like gets along with the little old ladies. He could hang out with Aunt Bee and Mayberry and feel right at home.
Adam, where art thou? And that cry has been going forth down through the ages for thousands of years, God crying over the lost Adams and the lost Eves. Where art thou? Why don't you love me anymore?
How do you define a performance artist? What people like you and Eric Bogosian and others do?
Yeah, that's a toughie, because that term can be extremely pretentious. I think there's so many different types of performance art.
Sandra Bernhard at times falls into the same category,
yeah,
right?
I guess it's just a form of theater that's not really structured like a play. It could be anything you want it to be, which is what I like about it. That I don't particularly like to call myself a performance artist, but I like the word infotainer, maybe. But I think you could make of it what you will. If you want it to be all music, it can be all music. If you want it to be just autobiographical monologue, it can be that. It can be a little bit of everything. It's just, I think, a more highfalutin, artier version of vaudeville.
So
drive bouffant, basic training. Cops in drag dressed up like whores. Cowboys in ponytails, bankers in bangs. Presidents in pompous pompadours. Mamas in mohawks, daddies in dreadlocks. Heavy metal Goldilocks trying to look tough. A wet look, the dry look, the FBI look. But can you judge a crook by his cover-up? Hairstyles and attitudes, are they connected? Our styles we embrace the matter of taste or values rejected. Hairstyles and attitudes, how do they relate? How well do we use our freedom to choose the illusions we create?
How much of what you do on stage was thought out, and how much is just something that kind of happens? What element of improvisation is in it?
Well, I think about 80% of it's, at least the things I do in nightclubs, 80% of it is written out, or it's structured. You have an outline, and then you just, whatever the moment calls for, you go with it. I don't really improvise that much in a more theatrical setting.
Isn't cable television the best thing that could happen to people like yourself?
I think so, except that it's still ruled by the same kinds of people who run the networks. I think in the end, everybody really wants to make money. And the only place where you can have true freedom is public access. So I know a lot of people who have their own public access shows. I personally like to watch that more than anything else on TV, because that is reality, and I think there should be more public access time allotted to the American public.
Didn't you do either in print or on stage a rip job on that cable show Attitudes before it became a staple of Saturday Night Live?
Right. Well, I did. It wasn't a rip job.
Was it an appreciation?
It was an appreciation.
A perverse appreciation?
Yeah, it was. I don't know, it was about 2 years ago, and I've been watching this show, just kind of mesmerized by the, I don't know, the perverse giggliness of it all.
Yeah.
And I wrote this piece for Vogue, and yeah, and then they turned it up as a spoof on Saturday Night Live, not the spoof, not the article, the show. But I ended up going on the show a couple of weeks ago on Attitudes. They were doing an on the road in America, and they offered me 2 tickets to Miami. I thought, well, I'd like to go to Miami. Next century. Tammy Faye moisturizer.
Thank you.
Tammy Faye eyeshadow number 327.
This is
lovely
what she
shade
wears.
of purple.
These are all her products.
Maybe we could do a makeover with Tammy Faye product. Linda?
Maybe.
And the Tammy Faye beautiful purple eyeshadow. It's mascara.
And this runs automatically.
Yes.
Automatically. Okay.
It's very running. And a Tammy Faye for Vice President button with the Heritage USA sticker on the back. This makes it worth more.
No. Isn't she clever?
Did they know that you would spoof them?
Oh, I never spoofed them. I enjoyed the show. I mean, maybe on some levels that they didn't clue into, but I'm telling you, the spoof on Saturday Night Live is very funny, but nothing comes close to the true insanity of those women. They are, well, I don't want to be cruel. They're crazy.
When you look at, I saw the thing on Saturday Night Live before I ever happened to stumble across the show on cable. I think it's on the Lifetime network, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't know what time these shows are on. It's not like a network show where you say, okay, this is on a Thursday night. You find it by accident. You're flipping around looking for scores or something on ESPN, and all of a sudden, there it is. Right. And at least superficially, I couldn't get over how much like the spoof this show was. It didn't look as if the spoof was wildly exaggerated. I mean, these 2 women weren't far off what I'd seen on Saturday Night Live.
No, they do a very good job. But I'm telling you, the real thing is true with a lot of parody. It never really can come quite close to the brilliance of the real thing.
What's the essence of that brilliance as you see it?
Well, that show is like a mini pad ad run amok. It's like a pajama party on acid.
And think about that. A pajama party on acid.
Must
what might that be like?
Well, actually, I ran this club in New York called Club 57, and I had a girls' organization called the Ladies Auxiliary of the Lower East Side, and we used to have events like a little mini prom and a lady wrestling night, and we had a slumber party night where no men were allowed, and it was came very close to the kind of experience that one has watching the Attitudes program,
where everyone put their hair up in curlers, put cold cream on their face, and brought all their records in a box, like with pictures of musical notes and girls in ponytails.
And we played Mystery Date, and actually we had some go-go boys who came in for some entertainment.
That livens up any affair.
Yes, it does. And we also had the Secret Boy File, which we had index cards with pertinent information on the neighborhood men, and how much they'd spend on you on dates, and et cetera, et cetera.
So it kind of cuts through a lot of the dating clutter. If you could just get these nuggets of information and pull them right up, you could make a decision without wasting valuable time.
Exactly. It's girls bonding with girls, and you know, fighting the eternal battle of the sexes and coming out on top.
Anything interesting happen with Madonna during the making of Desperately Seeking Susan?
I just had my one little cameo moment, which Susan Seidelman asked me to write my material for it. So I just basically wrote the lines where Madonna comes in, and I go, "Oh, well, we thought you all were dead." She goes, "No, just in New Jersey." That's it. And I still get a nice little residual check from that, believe it or not.
Making Mr. Right, the Susan Seidelman picture with John Malkovich, was probably your first step, at least toe in the water, in terms of mainstream work?
Yeah, that I had more than 2 days' work on. It was very nerve-wracking because we did it down in Florida, and I felt that I was away from the support group in New York, and although everybody was very nice on it, I was extremely nervous and got these pains on the side of my side that was just from complete nerves. I'd never been under that kind of structure before. Suddenly there was all this money that one could spend on a production when I was used to $40 for a night to do something, and I guess my biggest surprise was the amount of waste that goes on on a major motion picture.
What's the best piece of advice your character, the image consultant, gave John Malkovich, the android?
I think her advice was don't fall in love in her 80s cynical career woman mode, and then she turned around and did exactly that.
How did they cast you?
I did the auditioning route, which, shocking as it may seem, I actually won the part through that way.
You can see ANN MAGNUSON every week on Anything But Love with Jamie Lee Curtis and Richard Lewis, but if we want to see some of the more offbeat material you do, without venturing to the clubs in New York to do it, where can we catch you?
Oh, you can rent my cinematic special on HBO Home Video called Vandemonium, and I think people are going to have to ask for it by name in your local video store.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We're gone. See you later.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to join Bob and Martin Landau tomorrow on Later.
Thanks for watching Cleveland Live Music. It's awfully bright out here. I'd click on another one of my videos. Quit looking into the sun. Your mother told you not to do that. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel more, there's GoFundMe and Patreon information in the video descriptions. Ooh, ooh!